I think the clock has started, so we'll keep it brief. Today we're going to talk about how do we actually design projects that keep inclusion at the forefront. We will address the biggest problem that a lot of us in ecosystem have regarding placements and retention. And we will talk about various nuances of diversity. Right? So beyond gender, which I'm the only one representing in this panel, by the way. But beyond that, we will look at other forms of diversity as well, right? So I'd like to kickstart the panel, perhaps Keshav from you, on when we talk about designing projects, keeping inclusion in mind and keeping diversity in mind. Could you reflect on some of the examples from your current or your previous organization and talk us through how do you design projects for inclusion?
Sure, thanks Garima for the question. So I'll just give you a very brief example. We've made a program for skill development for the local community around. And once we started the program, we faced issue in terms of getting the attendance, particularly from the male candidates. When we inquired about the reason, there were on certain days, those people from a particular community would not be coming to the vocational training institutes. And that is how we came to know, this is one particular set of group which would want to have an holiday of in that particular day of a week. We rectified that issue. We moved on. After a couple of months, we faced the issue that the girl students were not coming to the skill center. Then we understood that there is a problem with the commute facility because the center was quite far. We rectified that problem. We've provided the transportation services. After a couple of months, we realized that again the same problem is coming up. We realized that now the winter season has come up. The sunset is happening a bit quicker. So especially the female students are not able to make it on time in the evening. And that's the major issue that they are facing in terms of attending those trainings within that institute. And then in terms of data, when we analyzed, we got to know that for a particular section of community, particular age group, there are certain courses which are preferred. And that's how we got a little bit intrigued in terms of understanding about all these issues of diversity, to be honest. And we also did a small research study, apart from the factors which are generally taken care into diversity, be it age, typical background, nationality, etc., all in those figure. We realized that there are certain softer aspects as well in terms of psychology, in terms of behavior, in terms of social response, and all these factors are also part of the diversity while we want to develop programs for the community which can build skills. So the point which I'm trying to make is, there are a lot of factors which contribute to a diverse workforce, and we should account all those factors while developing skill development programs for the community around.
So thanks. I think while we are on the topic of design, taking a cue from our, other topic of this panel discussion, Anurag, I'd like to come to you and ask you, how do you actually convert these degrees into skills?
दो तीन चीज़ें पहली तो thank you for giving me this opportunity. When you see that it's handwritten, you mean इसका मतलब ये होता है कि I'm a replacement there. But degrees, it's very आज की तारीख के अंदर में everyone is running after degrees, which gives you a stamp to stand in one particular place there, but it doesn't allow you to become employable. It teaches you certain things which were defined few years back when the market was something else, or the need was something else, or the requirement was something else there. And we continued with that particular thing क्योंकि वो बदलने में time बहुत लगता है. अप्रूवल काफ़ी सारी लगती है, तो वी डोंट डू दैट पर्टिकुलर थिंग, नॉर टीचर ट्रेनिंग, पेडागॉजी, बाकी फैकल्टी ट्रेनिंग वो सब नहीं करना चाहते. How we can bring in skills in the degree is that you start connecting the faculties and connecting the curriculum with what market is asking for, and how that will lead to that individual who is finishing that particular course a dignified job. When I use the word dignified, that means that he or she should get a job where the salary should be good enough for him to what is called live his life. ऐसा नहीं कि आपने कुछ भी दे दिया और कुछ भी कर दिया, पहली चीज. दूसरी चीज है कि this is when you bring in, and the NAP tries to do that particular thing where the focus is to ensure that your degree is more skill oriented rather than just degree per se there. But that will involve huge amount of investment, not just bringing in skills training to to individuals who are attending it, but you'll have to invest in curriculum, you'll have to invest in faculties, you'll have to invest in pedagogy, and you need to also invest in changing the mindset of people where agility should become the buzzword there rather than rather than being stereotyped, or rather than being I'll say consistent being the buzzword there. That's the moment we do that, I think then you can convert your degrees into more skills which will lead or which will help people get the job that they are seeking.
So I think you bring an important point that eventually all of this is to get a placement or a job, right? So Abhishek, perhaps I'd like to come to you and ask you. Now in this ecosystem, I think a lot of us come as different players, whether it's training partner or a donor or a mobilizer, implementing partner. But we see that we do talk about skills for market-oriented jobs, but placements is a huge challenge. So how do you create access opportunity to these placements?
Thanks, Garima. So I wanted to connect this question to also to the topic here, which is how do we build skills for the diverse workforce of, and I wanted to speak more from the side of non-profit world rather than the corporate world, which got to eventually create these employment opportunities. So again, and bringing a scale into this whole conversation, the biggest number of jobs, particularly in the formal sector, are at the entry level. And at the entry level, I think it's not about different kind of skills for diversity. I think the kind of skills required for different people are pretty much same. What is needed is a focus on diversity, and at least in the beginning, I want to just focus on, let's say, women labor force participation rate. So how do we bring more women into bring economic opportunities for women? So there are two parts to it that I can think about. One is how do you get more access of the job opportunities for women? How do we provide those? How do we get women to even access the opportunities? And two is how do we recognize the challenges that women face? In fact, this morning, I think I was reading that there was it a World Bank report that said that there is a marriage something, which said that basically 1/3 of the women drop out right after marriage from the workforce, and a lot of it got to do with the relocation, etc. And therefore, if they can't get to the jobs, then jobs will have to come to them in some ways, and particularly in the rural areas. So how do we get the remote jobs, part-time jobs, gig jobs? How do we get even, so while Anurag, I fully agree with you on the dignified jobs, but I think if you look at the context differently, even a 2,000 rupee income for a rural woman, if she's working couple hours when she can, could be a big support to the family. So how do we bring these gig jobs, remote jobs, part-time jobs to the women is something that UNICEF at this time is working fairly significantly on. And we are trying to see what are the different models that can come from the private sector and possibly create new models as well. I'll just stop here for the moment.
So I think you've touched upon one aspect of diversity, which is gender. Arun, I'd like to come to you. I know that your platform has been skilling the kind of numbers that are aspirational, but talk to us a little bit more about what other forms of diversity are important to focus on and how do you bring that?
Sure. First, I'll give a background so that it will be easier for people to connect. For example, all of us were speaking. If you have looked at it, when Anurag sir was speaking, everybody was connected to him very easily because he was talking in Hindi, which is English mode as well. So that is very important when you are doing anything which is not your natural stuff. Okay, whether it is skilling or anything what you want to be. So when you do something in your native language, it makes the connect and it makes easier for you to adapt towards it. Especially, for example, I come from a tier 2 city, Madurai. Most of my friends, when I was doing engineering, they are from Tamil medium schools. When I teach them, generally they learn faster and score more than me. And some of them are right now in Google as well. So what that means is, so the language is a barrier for them to get acquainted to the technology skill, one part of it, another one is the expression of it. Okay, so if you are confident in your skill, even if your English is bad, it doesn't matter, your skill will talk for yourself. So that is where GUI starts from it. So that we have seen it a lot, especially for example, this idea, right? One is we have around 30 lakh learners in our platform, that's one part of it. And when we talk about it, people say that, hey, native language or learning in the vernacular is for only at the beginner level. No, it is not. For example, to prove that, 2 weeks back, we did a Guinness World Record exclusively for women in generative AI. Okay, so that is done to say that, hey, people, no matter which level they are in, if they want to learn a new skill, if it is given in the native language, people love that. We gave it in 6 different languages, including English as well. We don't discard English. Okay, when it happened, around 6 lakh people learned and then we got the record. So this is one way to bring in inclusivity in all over the country. Okay, especially English is not being our mother tongue. So when you go beyond metros, this becomes a biggest challenge in terms of bringing the inclusivity. So that is how it is one of the key player for bringing the inclusivity.
So congratulations on the Guinness World Record. And I think you talked about linguistic diversity, right? I also want to talk about this human, non-human diversity that you just addressed upon, which is generative AI. And I think there's always this whole skepticism around whether these are going to replace jobs. So a quick comment on that and then we'll move.
Sure. Actually, unfortunately, Sam Altman and positioned like generative AI is going to take away every other job. No, it is not. Okay, being a technologist, I can bet on against him saying that it is not going to be, because so they talk about AGI, artificial general intelligence. It is not going to come at least for next 5 years. Not because of any other thing. It is because of the cost of the technology, and it is because of the data which is needed to train the technology. Those 2 factors, beyond the other factors, stop it. Even if a private company wants to start it, like even in GUI, we are more into generative AI, but we selectively implement it. Wherever we want to use it in the manual or the proper automated way, we use the automation so that the cost of GPUs is much faster. To give a context, your simple Google search versus the ChatGPT thing is 60 times power consumption between normal search versus the ChatGPT question. That is the thing. So think about it, 60 times. So your power consumption increases, all the company bills will go higher. Simple electricity bill will go higher. So for that, they'll look into it and then only they'll take into that. So that way, it is not going to come in terms of economics, first part. Second part is the data. Data is becoming a key thing. So every company is not ready. I mean, most of the, earlier they were scraping the data and then doing it. Now companies are aware, they are not ready to give the data to others as well, no matter whether you are Google or Microsoft. The individual companies, startups want to protect their data, and that is becoming a law now. Okay, so that way it is not going to come in. So with this barrier, where generative AI will come in is, it will come in a lot of automating stuff, which is routine stuff. For example, We have a demo right now, I can't show it. So you might have go and search shirts in e-commerce sites, right? So how the search will work is there is something called metadata. So about the image, it will have the data. So that search is right now, the data is fed manually. That can be automated. That is lot of manual effort which is out there, which can be reduced. So those are the places where it will include lot of people to come and annotate and then create more jobs for the people, especially from tier 2 cities, and the flexible jobs which he was saying, Abhishek was talking about it. So there it becomes one of the key players, proprietary, and it will not be a public one which is destroying the jobs.
Sure. So great. So we've talked about gender diversity. Abhishek reflected on it. We've talked about linguistic. We've talked about, even geographical. I would now come to you, Anurag, and I would want you to talk about when we are saying skilling. Right now, we will move to the post-skilling, integration with the workforce. How do we focus on that? But while we're talking about skilling, talk to us about various modes, the rural, urban, entrepreneurship versus skilling, phygital, or only digital, because within this panel also we have diversity when it comes to the way we skill. So
The whole skilling universe has changed drastically after COVID. Our life has changed after COVID in so many ways. There can't be one size fit all there. तो अलग-अलग जगह पे अलग-अलग तरीके से people have done skilling का there. And you ask a question कि placement difficult है पहले अभिषेक से, और उसमें मेरा था कि placement is not that difficult. Today enrollment is the most difficult task there. सबसे मुश्किल का काम होता है लोगों को सबसे मुश्किल का काम होता है to get people enroll in a course there, because एक अजीब तरह से इंडिया में है जहाँ पे एक जगह लोग बोलते हैं कि जॉब नहीं है, जॉब नहीं है, जॉब नहीं है, जॉब नहीं है, and reach out to any corporate, they'll say कि I have position there but लोग नहीं है, लोग नहीं है, लोग नहीं है, लोग नहीं है. तो there is no, I'll say आप कहीं पर दोनों को लिंक नहीं करा पा रहे हैं, और लिंक इस कारण से नहीं करा पा रहे हैं क्योंकि हमारा जो इनरोलमेंट वाला जो ग्रुप है ना, जो कम्युनिटी है, उस कम्युनिटी को समवेयर वी नीड टू डू अ रियलिटी चेक विद देम टू से कि भैया इस तरह की जॉब है, इस तरह का स्किल सेट आपका, इसके लिए तैयार होना पड़ेगा और हमको जाना पड़ेगा बाहर. दैट्स वन. सिमिलर उसी के हिसाब से योर स्किलिंग थिंग विल ऑल्सो चेंज एंड इट्स चेंजिंग ऑल्सो. देयर आर पीपल हु आर डूइंग आपका फुल पूरा कोर्स फिजिकल मोड के अंदर में, बिकॉज यू कांट टीच थिंग्स ऑन कंप्यूटर के ऊपर में. कुछ चीज़ें जैसे मैं हॉस्पिटैलिटी के अंदर में हूँ, मान लो, and I'm trying to teach people on entry level positions in hospitality के अंदर में, I can't do digital. I need to what is called bring you to a place and teach you कि भाई ये कपड़े कैसे मोड़े जाते हैं और बिस्तर कैसे बनाया जाता है और खाना कैसे सर्व किया जाता है. I can't do that on a phone there. Similarly on tech के अंदर में I can't teach people Java on smartphone there, because ये smartphone can't hold more than X amount of speed or can't hold more than X amount of memory there. So you'll have to get these people centers के ऊपर में. लेकिन कुछ एक जगह के अंदर में ऐसा भी है कि there are certain communities, if they find hugely difficult for them to go every day to centers there. People with disabilities. What I saw during COVID was that there was a huge upsurge in their number acquiring learning material there, because everything became digital. So there was no, I'll say, problem in accessing information there. Same with women who were looking for restart their career. They suddenly realized that COVID gave them a very unique opportunity to access learning through digital mode, और अपने हिसाब से, अपने पेस पर, अपने टाइम के अंदर जहाँ पर उनको बाकी काम भी करने थे और पढ़ाई भी करनी थी. तीसरा था कि यू विल हैव टू फाइंड कुछ एक जगह के अंदर में व्हाट आई हैव सीन कि देयर आर मेनी पीपल हु हैव डन मिक्स ऑफ बोथ, एंड दैट्स वेयर यू हैव यूज्ड द राइट वर्ड फिजिटल, वेयर कुछ एक टाइम आप सेंटर में गुजारते हो, कुछ एक टाइम यू कैरी द लैपटॉप होम और यू डू फ्यू थिंग्स एट होम, come back, do those projects there, उसका assessment लेने के लिए आप फिर इधर आते हो. That allows a catchment of people who can manage बाकी सारी चीज़ों को भी and do that skilling there. We'll have to somewhere acknowledge that स्किलिंग में वो बच्चा आ रहा है आपके पास में. There are two segments in skilling who are coming to us. One segment who has money there, so they will not come to NGO run skilling program के अंदर. उनके माँ बाप ही तैयार नहीं होंगे आपके पास भेजने के लिए. उनका सीधा वो गरीबों का है, मत जाओ वहाँ पर. जो फ्री है, they will not go there. They'll go to a more costly swanky training center के अंदर में आप ट्रेनिंग लेके 80,000, 1 लाख, 2 लाख, 2.5 लाख पैसे देके they'll get the skill and they'll come back there. People whom we are catering to are primarily those who come from economically challenged background या socially underserved background के अंदर में. तो आपको फिर वो भी देखना पड़ेगा कि वैसे बच्चे तो नहीं हैं जो कि दिन में कहीं काम करने जाते हैं, रात में ही उनके पास में स्किल अक्वायर करने का टाइम है. You'll have to find not just physical, digital, but you'll have to also look at कि मेरा टाइमिंग क्या होगा, मैं रात में करेगा, दिन में करेगा, अर्ली मॉर्निंग करेगा. Then only you can do that particular thing. Last, you'll have to somewhere make everyone become very realistic with कि आपको जॉब कहाँ है ये देखने का. I may train someone in Niva, सीधी, सतना, but जॉब वहाँ नहीं है. I'll have to get you to Indore, get you to Bhopal, get you to Ujjain there. I'm giving you one example. Similarly with Maharashtra, सोलापुर में मैं ट्रेनिंग करूँगा, बट सोलापुर के बंदों को मुझे बोलना पड़ेगा भैया आपको बम्बई, पूना, नागपुर जाना होएगा. एंड यू हैव टू बी रेडी. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अब मैं इस पैनल में जितने लोगों को देख रहा हूँ, हम लोग जहाँ पे काम कर रहे हैं, दैट्स नॉट माई ओरिजिनल प्लेस. हम अपना शहर छोड़ कर आए हैं, हम कमाने के लिए अपना घर छोड़ कर आए हैं. तो लोगों को भी कमाने के लिए घर छोड़ कर आना पड़ेगा, तभी आप कमा पाएंगे. जब तक ये नहीं बता पाएंगे, स्केलिंग विल नॉट बी सक्सेसफुल देयर. दैट्स वेयर इनरोलमेंट विल कम डाउन वेरी.
So I'll pick the thread from there. A lot of times when we are skilling for market-oriented jobs, the market may not be available where your training center are or where, like you rightly said, where you mobilize people from. Abhishek, I'd like to come to you. This is, especially in rural areas, the focus, a lot of it is on nano enterprise and on entrepreneurship, farmer income, etc., so that there isn't a migration and there is a local economy that is strengthened. So what is the role that various players, and specifically because you work so largely with governments, how do government schemes, how can they be unlocked and leveraged to promote diversity and to make sure that we are strengthening the rural economy?
Yeah, no, thanks. So firstly, I wanted to completely align with Anurag on what he's saying about the point that he's making about different people needing very different kind of skills and making sure we have got to make sure. But okay, sorry. But the larger point I wanted to make, and I see Ved sitting here, and it's a sort of a tactical point that I wanted to make about involving most marginalized people into our skilling programs, etc., is that typically what you find is that when you work in the constraints of a skilling program, what happens is that when you try and reach out to the most marginalized, whether it is the tribal populations, whether it is the most remote locations, you will find that the costs spiral up. The kind of jobs that you require for the most marginalized people are specialized jobs. The kind of training that you require is a specialized training. Getting them all together in one place takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. So I think from our perspective, and there is one study that we have done on how to engage the most marginalized more and more. And on a tactical, we will be releasing the report soon in 2 weeks' time. But one of the tactical points that we make there is that this acknowledgement of differential pricing, if you want to include the most marginalized, is very, very important, which basically in some of the government schemes, this is very clearly identified as well, where government puts in a price premium to include the more marginalized people, which is an acknowledgement that there is a cost differential there. So I think while there are a bunch of strategies that we talk about when we want to engage the most marginalized, but if we have to bring the intentionality has to come along with acknowledgement that there is differential costing as well. And therefore, in our programming, for example, let's say if it costs $100 to train a young person to get a job, we would want to say that 20% of those people have to be most marginalized, but it is going to also cost 20% more. And therefore, the kind of total budgets that you create can be $100 for 80 people, but it will have to be probably $100, what did I say, $100 for 80 people, so $120 for remaining 20 people. And that's how you work this out. Once the numbers work for you, the engaging the most marginalized then can happen far more intentionally.
So before I open the floor to questions, I'll just, Keshav, I'll go to you. And the other panel members are also requested to input. I think it's also important that you've thought of, at a design stage, at the skilling stage, at the workforce integration stage, you've thought of diversity and inclusion, right? But once they are in the workforce, I think a lot of policies of companies, etc., kick in, where there is a need to break barriers, right? And I think differently abled is a huge leap that we have seen. Earlier, how will they even come to work? How will they commute? I think these all, sometimes innovation, sometimes policy, all of them have kicked in to make it possible. So, Keshav, let's start with you. If you could reflect on one or two enabling policies that are there which support diversity, and feel free to interpret diversity much liberally.
I mean, just answering to that question, when Abhishek and Anurag ji was talking about, we all come from different background, different places, and now we are working at different places. So I just put one more context in front of the audience. Like I work I work in an airport sector. Now, if you see an airport, it's a small town which has variety of operations. You have ground handling, you have airlines, you have hotel, restaurants, you have a lot of transportation facilities which are there. Now, in each of these sectors, all sectors operate in a very massive scale. When they operate in a massive scale, they generate more employment. When they generate more employment, there is a good amount of manpower requirement. And to cater that requirement, skill development institutes or agencies helps a lot. Now, in our case, fortunately, what we've done is, and no offense to CSR professionals, we've made an HR council with all the agencies who are working within the airport system, be it on the cargo side, on the flight kitchen side, on the hotel side. Now, all these of our partners know what is their business plan, by when they would be needing which kind of roles and how many number of those kind of people would be required. The good part is now we know the numbers, we know what kind of skill sets are required, we know our market segments, we know what kind of community in which we are operating. So what we did is we have mapped those kind of training and institutes who can provide skills to those people within our community and make themselves ready for the positions and roles that they can take within the airport ecosystem. It has offered us a good advantage in terms of the people who are working within their villages, cities, districts, they are getting a job within that same geographies. It's a win-win situation for the employer, for the community, for everybody, for the skill development institutes. So, that's what I would want to mention, in terms of the opportunities which are there from the airport sector. Yep.
Okay, thanks. I was just going to say I opened the floor, but I love that the hands went up already. So sure, is there? We'll start with you, ma'am. And then I can see 4 hands. Yeah, I'll come to you. मैं generational diversity के उससे देख रहा हूँ. Can I give you my?
Thank you. Lots of things to think about. I'm Sujata from Future Hope in Calcutta. We work with street and slum children, and we also have a skill center. So I was very interested in listening to all of you. And I want to refer to the point made by Anurag ji, dignified employment. Why don't we have dignified employment in India? After doing a 3-year hospitality course or a proper full-fledged training certified by National Skills Development Corporation, young people are offered jobs of 5,000 rupees, 6,000 rupees for indefinite periods. I mean, what are your thoughts about this? Why is this happening? What can we do to change this?
No, I've been someone who has been saying this for long. मैं बहुत clearly बात करता हूँ कि both NGO sector के अंदर में भी मैं लोगों को बोलता हूँ कि ढंग की salary दो. वो 5,000, 8,000, 10,000 के अंदर में don't keep people there. Pay them well, then only you can keep them there. That's one. And I've been saying this since I'll say 15 साल 18 साल से मैं इस चीज़ को बोल रहा हूँ. दूसरा with the jobs also, I've changed, domain मैंने बदल दिए, नहीं किए. Where I realized that people entry level salary जो दे रहे थे 3,000 रुपए, 4,000 रुपए, 5,000 रुपए. That's where we started negotiating with the job provider to say that आपको मैं बच्चे allow करूँगा कि नहीं करूँगा. Whether I'll allow you to come and do the interview in my center or not, based on how much salary that you are offering it to people there. Because 5,000 में घर नहीं चलता. You are in a way promoting that individual to do some chori. वो करेगा ही क्योंकि he has to live his life there. And that's number of people I am aware of जो इस panel के अंदर बैठे हुए लोग को they are doing in their own spaces that they will not allow, for example, if I am an employer there and want to interview people, take some people from the center that you are running in there, they will not allow you if you provide a salary which is not dignified there in that particular sense, or you are itching.
Sorry. Before I pass on, I also want to contextualize this question, right? Because I think here mobilization will also play a very important part. Are you looking at somebody who comes from a family background with an annual salary of 40,000 rupees, etc.? Then 5,000-6,000 rupees is also good, right? Because there are jobs available. I think it's also about the right fit. So I'm totally in agreement that there has to be, a push, and ecosystem will have to push. All players will have to push. But I also want to contextualize. Yes.
Thank you, panelists. I think this was a very interesting session. And I'm going to ask rather a very naive question. Please feel free to ignore it if it's not valid here. But my question is a little bit opposite. So I work for an organization called Teach for Change. And my name is Aishwarya. And we are training our children to go beyond their backgrounds. So we believe that children should be able to reach to a stage someday where they become a senior position holder in a very good corporate. When we are discussing about beyond degrees, how much actually the corporates are ready to go beyond that? Now imagining like a situation, a child, we have a workshop module wherein we are giving vocational training to children at a very bite-sized level. Like a 4th standard kid would learn about a handloom industry and a very bit of skill that they can learn to. But imagining this kid tomorrow, Keshav sir, applies for a hospitality role and they have the skill for it, but they don't have the degree for it. Would you really hire that kid on the basis of the skill? And how would you then know that, the child is equipped enough now to enter the workforce, imagining that after graduation, but doesn't have the money to go for an post-graduation? So how would you hire that individual?
Yeah. Earlier it used to be a barrier, a big barrier, especially that without the degree you will not be able to cross the thing. Now, except the specialized role, most of the companies are ready to take up the other roles as well. For example, you might be from a mathematics background, you want to get into an animation role, or I come from IT, so I'm fixing it towards that. So those kind of crossovers, even for example in my team, one person is from microbiology, he became a coder. Okay. So the degrees is getting blurred, especially if you are able to prove your skills. That's where everybody was saying, skills is becoming much more vocal than the degree. And yeah.
No, sir. I am I don't want to stop you. I completely agree that we're changing. But Anurag sir, according to the hierarchy level that we have in corporates, like you have 5 years to become a senior, do you think a person who has skill can directly enter into a seniority level then?
No, no,
Please go.
that's what I'll say. Let him complete this particular thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that perspective, at the entry level, the barriers are removed as of now, except the special professional courses. Rest of the things are kind of okay. But as you go higher and higher, so even earlier also, it was not based on the degree. It is based on the experience or the seniority level. That's how it was. Okay. That's how I see it. That is, if you're able to prove it faster, it gets easier and smoother for the people in the current generation. At least that's what I am saying in my current zones.
Did you say that this is a naive question that you are asking? No, this was not a naive question, but it was good. I'll say वो जो sugar coat करते हैं ना ताकि वो आंसर देने के लिए आदमी तैयार हो जाए ये बहुत आसान सारा सवाल पूछ रहे हो. The point एक चीज बताओ, you are asking for 0.2 0.3% वाला fraction के लोग के अंदर में एक चीज मान के चलो. let's recognize this particular thing. आपको अगर ओलंपिक में दौड़ना है ना तो आपको नेशनल क्लियर करना पड़ेगा. तो अगर कोई भी ये कहता है कि बिना डिग्री के भी आ जाओ हमारे यहाँ पर, डिग्री चाहिए था आपको बिकॉज दैट मेक्स यू एलिजिबल टू डू दैट पर्टिकुलर थिंग. उसके बाद में यू नीड टू पॉलिश इट विथ सर्टेन स्किल्स देते हैं, वो आएगा तभी आपके पास में आगे जाओगे. ठीक है.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Vaijanti from Center for Science of Student Learning. So I have one question. I think there's a big elephant, white elephant in this room, which is not fully addressed, though I think Anurag did mention about it. You have jobs, you have people, but they're not employable, right? And on the other hand, you're also going to have AI, and you have also robotics, you have drone, and so many other technology coming in. And you do not know what you're educating the child for, because 4 years when he goes out in the market, job may not exist, right? And when you're talking of diverse workforce, all of you spoke about diverse people, but what about like white collar jobs and blue collar jobs? White collar jobs are the ones which are most affected by the AI thing, right? So my question to the panel is that, but among all the things that we do as human beings, whether you're a carpenter, what differentiates a carpenter from a good carpenter is his ability to think and create and innovate, right? So what is it that we will be equipping as skills for our workforce, that tomorrow, whatever the industry changes or adapts, how are you planning the change to adapt to whatever the world is able to throw at us in the next 3 years?
Thanks, Vajanti. I mean, I don't want to preach to the choir here. I did want to speak about the life skills and importance of it, and the fact that largely, at least at the entry level jobs, to begin with, it seems like all employers need is these softer skills, right? Are you willing to work hard? Are you willing to put in the hours that are required, so on and so forth? And then a lot of employers seem to be saying, at least that's what we hear, that as long as you are willing to work hard, come in and we'll teach you on the job. So a lot of technical vocational skill can happen on the job, with a hands-on learning, but I think you need to have the right kind of attitudes, and those are the ones that you are referring to. Completely agree on that. But because it didn't completely come in the remit of this topic, I didn't talk about it. Does that answer some of what you are saying? But I fully agree with you, the need for it.
My request will be, I'll tell you one thing. You do this one-to-one calendar में, there are other people who have raised their hand. सब लोग, मैं time देख रहा हूँ, time खत्म हो जाएगा.
So it's just not about the attitude. The point I want to bring here is that the research shows that less than 10% of our country has thinking skills.
Yeah.
Thinking skills. So what skilling are we talking about here? That's my question.
No. So I think he did reflect on life skills, right? I think we are also, so I'll take a very small example. Take digital marketing, for example, right? It did not exist. Nobody got educated in digital marketing. but we did pick it up. So the idea is that how are you training for futuristic skills, problem solving, thinking, and a lot of us have integrated soft skills, life skills, work readiness as a part of our modules, right? So that addresses. So.
Hi, I'm Atul Bhatnagar from the Pan IT Alumni Foundation. Look, degrees is something which was a very great interest to us when I was in NSTC. And we came up with this, ke hunar hai to qadar hai. If you have skills, you have respect. Now, Anurag, as far as degrees is concerned, South Korea, 95% of the people are certified skilled. Now, when you say certified skill, you don't say how many MBAs, PhDs, 10th pass, graduates, whatever. And that country is winning 50% of the medals in any skills Olympiad that has ever held. India, that percentage is less than 10. That's one part. Now, on the corporate side, we are not advertising what skill we want, what certified skill we want. We just say graduate ho, 10th pass. So 2018, you might remember a press article. There were 63 PN jobs that advertised. 93,000 applications came in. There were 3,700 PhD people. There are 50,000 people who were graduates who applied for that. Now, a PN's job is skilled. Why? Because it requires archival, it requires retrieval, it requires organizing, it requires customer service, all that bit. And some of those skills I don't have, and I'm very open about that. Because we're not taught that way. I mean, we're taught, I can pick it up in 7 days, but for a PN, if you're applying for the job, you advertise what skill certification do you want for it. And that is as per the NSQF, whether you need a plumber or even for a, let's say a web designer. You don't have to say he has to be Java graduate or he can be a C++ graduate. He has to be a website designer or your digital marketing skill. I also got a marketing degree from a good institute. But in today's day and age, that degree is outdated.
Yes.
I don't know what the digital marketing is all about. Yeah. I don't know about all the, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn from my children, in fact, very frankly. But I don't. So degrees can get outdated. Skills can only sharpen themselves. And that is where I would come to.
Yes. I think you've also answered ma'am's question. We'll take the last question, please. I know, but she was the fifth person.
Hi, I'm Pallavi. I'm from Best Practices Foundation, and we are a livelihood organization, very grassroots, and my question is coming from there. So whenever we talk about skills, our idea is mostly, I've seen that, put them into a job, okay? And because we are a grassroots organization, we have seen in grassroots that they are very poorly literate, and they go and they get trained into like, our city trains them in tailoring, so 100 tailors in one village, 100 beauty parlor, in one village, no market. So just simple question, I want to know when and how we are going to start speaking about entrepreneurship as a skill development. Because see, there's a huge market, labor market sitting in rural, doing nothing. And they have no, means to come out also. Many reasons like, hopefulness of agriculture going back again. They also need livelihood. And because we work into entrepreneurship and that's working for us, but I never hear this word in any of the, bigger summits and conference. So I just want to know when are we going to talk about it?
So I think there was a question, there was a commentary, and you've answered your own question. You are right. It is about, instead of removing the catchment area and setting up 100 tailors, it's about entrepreneurship. I think a lot of us, when I had referred to Abhishek that question, that when we talk about skilling, we're not just talking about skilling for market-oriented jobs, we're also talking about skilling for entrepreneurship. Yeah. So thank you. Time is up, and I've got 2 warnings. So thank you so much for, I would like to thank you.